Hey, this is Tom McElroy with tommcelroysurvival.com. I've already showed you how to do a bow drill and a hand drill with prepared materials. You know, you've got your nylon string, your carved out bow drill already. What I want to do is show you how, if I was in the woods, I would make a bow drill from scratch. The first thing I'm going to do is find a type of tree that has a soft wood. So I'm going to look around the ground when I'm going. I can just pick up branches from the local trees and kind of break them, scratch them with my fingernail, and just make sure that it's a decently soft wood. Things like oak and hickory are really dense woods, and it's difficult to get a friction fire going with them. So the softer the wood, the more you can scratch it with your fingernail, the better it's going to be. This type of tree right here is a basswood tree. It's dead and it's standing. Generally for bow drill, I don't want to pick up my materials off the ground because the ground contains a lot of moisture. This is dead and standing. I can easily break it down, and it's going to be drier than anything else I'm going to find on the ground. So real quickly what I've done is to break the top of this tree down. I've got my spindle here, my fireboard here. It's not going to take too much carving, and I'm going to be ready to go. Alright, now that I've got my wooden pieces, I need to carve them down into the bow drill shape. Fortunately, I was able to select pieces that were already almost the shape. So this one's just about as thick as I need my spindle, and this fireboard isn't going to take much work to break in half. What I need to do in order to carve this down to a spindle is make myself a blade. Alright, so what I need to do now is to make a really quick blade out of a rock flake. I'm not flint knapping a spear point, I'm just going to make something that's going to be good enough for carving. I go around the woods, I knock on some rocks and find ones with a really high ping sound to them. So when I take this rock and hit it on this, I can tell there's a high ping sound to it. It means it might be really sharp. Next thing I'm going to do is just knock off a flake, and that's going to become the knife that I use. And there we have it. This rock flake breaks down extremely sharp at the edge here, and this is going to make a good enough knife to carve a bow drill with. Okay, now using my stone flakes, I can take this dry piece of softwood, strip off the bark, and just carve 2 points in the end for my spindle. I want this to be about 7 inches long, 7-8 inches long, and extremely straight. I'm going to find the straightest section that I can of this piece, break it, and then start carving down with my stone flake. Now this does take time, but if you just work at it consistently, maybe 20 minutes to point both ends. It's not going to be as quick as a knife, but it still works really well. Now what you need to do is slowly, little piece at a time, just whittle away at this stick, forming 2 points at the ends. Learning to make a bow drill in a survival situation without a knife is absolutely crucial if you want to be a good survivalist. Anybody can go out with a knife and a nylon string and get a bow drill going. Getting it going in totally primitive conditions is an entirely different story. There we have it, 1 point. I'm just going to do the same thing to the other end, and the spindle will be done. For my fireboard, I'm going to take this larger piece of wood. Here's my spindle, there's my fireboard. Strip off the bark as well, and pretty much just split it straight in half, and that's going to be what I need. It doesn't need to be the flat board that you so often see from pre-made kits that people bring out into the woods with them. Strip this down. Break it in half with the intention of trying to split it lengthwise. Okay. From here I can kind of hammer in. Take my rock flake, hammer it into that split, and continue that split down so that I flatten out the base of this a little bit more. Most people tell you in a survival situation that making a cordage for the bow drill on the first day is one of the more challenging aspects. I thought so too because I was going out collecting plants like this. This is a plant called dogbane, which is an amazing plant for getting natural fibers out of a material that you can make a strong cordage out of it. Unfortunately, processing, getting all this stuff off takes a few hours. And in the first day of a survival situation, when you want a fire, you can save a couple hours. That's just a godsend. Getting a fire before dark is absolutely crucial, so every minute you can save in the process of preparing this cordage is really going to help you out. So instead of showing you right now how to make rope by weaving together dogbane fibers, what I'm going to do is show you how to make a 2-minute long rope. You're going to strip it off a tree, wrap it onto a stick, and it's going to work within a few minutes for your bow drill. When looking for a good cordage, you don't necessarily need to know what type of tree you're looking for. What I like to do is when I go through the woods, I'll just break off little branches of trees and check out, if they don't snap off very easily, it's a good sign. And then I'll just gently peel the bark on that little branch. By peeling just even a little section of bark and pulling on it, I can tell whether or not it's strong. And if it's really hard to pull apart like this one, then I know this is a decent tree to use. So it's really hard to break this right now, so this type of tree is going to be great for making cordage. Last thing I need to do is process this bark. What I'm going to do is remove the cambium layer from the outer bark, just by kind of rolling it and just gently peeling it, trying to get as much of the inner bark as I can. The inner bark is where all the fibers are, it's where the strength of the cordage is. So by removing the outer bark, you just remove one unnecessary element to your cord and keep it from getting in the way. Out of one sapling, you can just get, 20 feet or more lengths of tons of really, really strong cord. So tree bark is the way to go when it comes to bow drill or something that you need to be really, really strong. Once I have my piece of bark, I'm going to kind of break it up, make sure it's super malleable. I'm going to tie an overhand knot in one end, and that's going to insert into the bow. The bow is just going to be a strong, flexible stick with a split in the top that I can insert this knot into. Once that's in there, I tie this up into a tube, just roll it up, insert the other end into the other end, and this becomes my bow. This should take anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes at best. Okay, now that my bow drill is entirely made, I'm going to run around and look for some extremely dry tinder. This can be made out of any really fluffy, fibrous material you find that's extremely dry. So, looking at this tree here, as the bark is peeling off of here, I notice that this is a very fibrous bark that I can easily buff into a really good tinder. Alright, here goes nothing. Here's my bow. I'm going to push on it. What that's going to do is loosen up the string so that I can wrap my spindle into it. But then when I let go, it puts tension right back on the string, so I've got enough grip on on the spindle. You can see nothing's lit. Got no prepared dust. Start slow and warm it up. Make sure my cord is as flexible as it can be. Clear a little space. hat. All right. So I ended up trying a couple times, and here it comes. And a nice big coal. I'm not going to move the camera, just so you know I'm not faking anything. I'm not going to cut the footage up, just so you know I didn't run around and stick a match in there at some point. But I move my board out of the way, and what I'm left with is a big fat coal. So that dust just lit up. What I'm going to do now is transfer this to my tinder bundle. This is where you want to make sure that your tinder's bone dry and really fluffed up nicely. Right there. This isn't the greatest tinder. Worst thing in the world is to be in a survival situation, get a fire, get a coal, and then have bad tinder. So I can let that sit for a second while I really fluff this up. Make sure that the best stuff's on top. Okay, here goes. So this is right in the middle. I'm going to bird's nest around it. And drop that into there. Now what I need to do is surround that hot coal with some of this fiber. I don't want to crush it, but I also don't want to just let it blow out without having more fuel to burn. And now I just blow this into flame. Hopefully. There we go. We got a fire. It's pretty awesome just starting from scratch and getting to this stage, knowing that in any situation you can make a fire.